Cedric stood in the dark cottage, embellished in dream catchers, talismans, and many other ceremonial items. His nose was invaded by the smells of herbs, spices, and ointments that were housed there. Rubbing his nose as spices tickled his nostrils, he found Wylleam bent over, digging through one of the boxes that cluttered the floor of the room. Being a Cynocephale, he had the head of a dog with long, tall ears and the body of a man. Wylleam was a powerful shaman, and his appearance reflected his position among his tribe. He had feathers wrapped into two long flutes of hair that draped down each side of his face. Across his dog-like head and furry chest were symbols and lines that one could only assume to help invoke communication with the spirits. So, Cynocephales is in the Cedric series, and we really don't encounter any other one except for Wylleam, and there's a reason for that. They were pretty much starting to... It's a long, weird history, okay? Cynocephales, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, they're also in this book. See, now I have to refresh. So I don't know everything off the top of my head. But they were a really fun. So St. Christopher had ties to them. That's what I wanted to remember. And they were like a race of hybrid humanoids, and they were often presented in ancient texts of Europe and medieval Christian beliefs and so forth. And it's Greek for dog heads. And of course, we also see it with Zeus cursing Boreas and his Lycan tribe. But it's interesting because when I dug into and tried to chase down original scripts and translations to both the Greek aspects of the Lycans and Lycanthropes and the Cynocephali, is that I suddenly decided that there was a huge gap. Like, they only recently were connected. So I made a huge effort when writing the Cedric series to keep them divided, you know? So in Romasanta here, which is book 2 of the Cedric series, you get to see that history and research I discovered while looking up and trying to see where the overlap was, only to discover that they weren't, and they should have never been overlapped in any means or anything. And I discovered this a lot with other things that I researched, and I know it's excessive amount of research, but it's also what makes a lot of what I've written about unique feeling, because I go back to the roots. I go back, say, okay, this was a separate entity and it should not be blended like we do now in modern times. So these were known as vegetarian, peace-loving people who lived in nomadic tribes throughout Europe region, right? And it's interesting because it almost feels like maybe this was another way of defining a pagan tribe. And St. Christopher made alliances because they saved his life, found him passed out on the road or hurt or something of the sorts. And he gave them sanctuary, but that soon turned and flipped as time went by and people's prejudice won out. And there are scriptures talking about people and texts and scripts out there talking about hunting these nomadic tribes out of existence. So it kind of makes one wonder. At the same point, when you go into Romasanta, you're going to discover that there is a lot of historical ties between ancient Greek mythology and Titanology in the story of the Lycans. There is historical and architectural architectural buildings and things discovered that Boreas and his tribe were real people, which gives the question, is Apollo just a tribe name or a namesake that just carried on legendarily? But that's another story. But in short, not to mix werewolves and lycanthropes with Cynocephali. They are two different entities. One is a lycanthropy is more of a curse, where Cynocephali were always that way. So that's some fun little medieval and ancient Greek shenanigans that you'll see showcased with Wylleam versus Romasanta.